Welcome aboard, applicants. Let's begin with the first year law students exam, October 2017, question 1. And as with all essay questions, we begin with the call of the question, so let's begin there. With what tort causes of action may Paula reasonably bring against Space Trip? Discuss. 2. What defenses, if any, does Space Trip have? Discuss. Well, right here we know what area of law we're dealing with. Tort causes. Well, that sounds like tort law to me. So let's start answering our call of the question right now. First of all, we say 1. What tort causes of action may Paula reasonably bring against Space Trip? Question mark. And we want to make sure to put down Paula v. Space Trip. Okay. And then call the question number 2. What defenses does Space Trip have? Question mark. Okay. And let's put this on a single sheet of paper here. We should on our way, and actually now that we know our area of law, we should put down our shopping list. Intentional torts, negligence, strict liability, products liability, other torts, and third-party issues. Okay. Let's come up here and do our first read of the question, which is what we call movie mode, to get a big picture perspective of our facts. Okay, Space Trip is a new venture created to send paying clients on a trip of a lifetime to the moon aboard its spaceship, the Escapade. This spaceship is equipped with a vehicle escape system using parachutes to allow passengers to return safely to the ground should a malfunction occur during the space trip's ascent. This system is widely used and listed in the Rocket Industry Standards Manual as being sufficient to provide adequate safeguards. Recently, a new system has become available that uses rockets to navigate the escape capsule back to the ground much more safely. However, this new system is also much more expensive than the parachute system and has not been tested in real-life situations. Space Trip decided to stick with its tried and true parachute system. Paula, who wanted an adventure, decided to purchase this trip from Space Trip. She signed a contract containing this statement. Although Space Trip has taken all reasonable measures to provide a safe voyage, I understand that space exploration is dangerous. On the day of the liftoff, the weather was beautiful and all systems were working as designed. But shortly after takeoff, a totally unpredictable, violent storm arose, blowing the Escapade off course. There was no way to correct for the deviation, so Space Trip activated the escape system, which deployed as designed. Unfortunately, the storm caused the escape capsule to crash to the ground. Paula was critically injured but survived. Investigations after the accident indicated that the new rocket escape system might have led to a better outcome. Now, what tort causes, if any, may Paula reasonably bring against Space Trip? Well, reading through our facts again, and then also call question number 2, what defenses, if any, does Space Trip have? Reading through our question now from our call, we're seeing in this thing here, the first paragraph, the Space Trip is a new venture created to send paying clients on a trip of a lifetime to the moon aboard its spaceship, the Escapade. This would be more of like a foundational supporting fact for a future issue. This spaceship is equipped with a vehicle's escape system using parachutes to allow passengers to return safely to the ground should a malfunction occur during the spaceship's ascent. Still, more foundation supporting facts. This system is widely used and listed in the Rocket Industry Standards Manual. I want to make sure to pay close attention to this. Oh, let me get this highlighted in yellow here. Excellent. as being sufficient to provide adequate safeguards. Now, into paragraph 2, recently a new system has become available that uses rockets to navigate the escape capsule back to the ground much more safely. However, this new system is much more expensive than the parachute system. So they're making a comparison here between the parachute system and the new system. Okay. And has not been tested in real life situations. Space Trip decided to stick with its tried and true parachute system. I want to make sure to emphasize that. Now Paula, we see Paula here for the first time in our facts, who wanted an adventure, decided to purchase this trip from Space Trip. She signed a contract, okay, containing this statement: although Space Trip has taken all reasonable measures, I'll make sure to put that in red or yellow here, to provide a safe voyage, I understand. This right here, probably just the word understand here, that space exploration is dangerous. And we'll talk about where these facts come in further in our analysis. On the day of the liftoff, the weather was beautiful and all systems were working as designed. But shortly after takeoff, a totally unpredictable violent storm arose, blowing the escapade off course. There was no way to correct for the deviation. So Space Trip activated the escape system, which deployed as designed. Unfortunately, this is right here, unfortunately, the storm caused the escape capsule to crash to the ground. Paula was critically injured, but survived. Investigations after the accident indicated that the new rocket escape system, which is what up here, the new system, might have led to a better outcome. Okay. It looks to me like we have a negligence claim here. We don't seem to have intentional torts. We might have strict liability, maybe, or a products liability situation, but I want to first start out with our negligence claim. Now, in terms of negligence, we begin with our general statement concerning negligence. Negligence is when, or present when, the defendant's conduct falls below standard of care, and such breach of duty is the actual and proximate cause of plaintiff's injuries. The elements representing negligence include duty, breach of duty, actual cause and proximate cause, and damages. Okay, so let's put that in here now. Duty, breach of duty, actual cause, proximate cause, damages. And remember, where we would put defenses, I would probably put this down here under our call number 2. So we'll throw in defenses here, okay? Which would be the defense of contributory negligence, comparative negligence. Actually, we want to put in last clear chance here too, just if it's there. Okay, and assumption of the risk. Okay, now let's ask ourselves here under duty. Remember, duty starts with, well, first of all, to whom the duty is owed, or to whom duty is owed, is our first question we ask ourselves here. Question mark. And then we ask ourselves here, are there any special damages, damages duty situations? And we have general duty. Okay. Now, to whom the duty is owed revolves around our Paul's graph, Cardozo and Andrew's position concerning the zone of danger. Was Paula within the zone of danger created by Space Trip's activities? Absolutely yes on this one, because she was actually in the spaceship escapade when it blew off course and she was injured, and she survived when the escape capsule crashed to the ground. Okay, so I would say yes on zone of danger, because she was that this has to do with the spaceship escapade. Make sure we got right here. I want to make sure I get the label. Okay, yeah, here it is. Escapade. Okay. Now, special duty. Was there any particular like statute, safety statute? Was there any particular land situations? I don't think so here. And was there any particular omission situations here? See, I don't see that. And so I would say, even though special duty, we should consider it and rule it out, I don't think there is a special duty here, except for maybe the special duty of contract, because we have here up here that she had signed a contract with Spaceship right up here, containing this statement. So maybe there was a special relationship flowing out of that omission contract with Spaceship to act as a reasonable as a reasonable right here reasonable space trip space trip provider would act in the same or similar circumstance. Okay, now then we would go into general duty, which is the reasonable prudent person. Okay, and that's excuse me here. Thank you for your patience. Also, in terms of reasonable prudent person, we ask ourselves here: did Space Trip owe Paula a duty to act as a reasonable space trip provider? Just very similar to the one that we did under special duty. And yes, in the same or similar circumstances, they should have acted as a reasonable prudent person or a reasonable prudent space trip provider. Okay. Now, so there was a duty owed to Paula from Space Trip. Now, did Space Trip breach their duty? And remember, the two ways is res ipsa loquitur, where the cause itself is unknown. We actually know what actually caused the storm. Well, actually, we actually know what caused the space trip voyage to not work. It was actually a totally unpredictable violent storm. Okay. Now, the actual unpredictability might in your mind have made it res ipsa loquitur, but I don't see that here. I see this mainly as being the learned hand calculus, whether or not the actions taken by Space Trip concerning the Space Trip escape system was reasonable, considering that the aspect about it being totally unpredictable. We'll come back and talk about that under proximate cause, but the system that was employed by Space Trip was the tried and true parachute system, which, remember, down here under investigation, after investigations has been found that it was not of the two the better of the two. They had stayed with their tried and true parachute system rather than the new system, which may have led to a better outcome. And that's what we're going to look at here under the learned hand calculus, learned hand formula. B is less than P times L. Now remember, in terms of our burden to have acted differently, we're going to come up here and grab something that we highlighted up here in the first paragraph. This is where we're going to talk about the rocket industry standards that this system, what system are we talking about? Yes, the parachute system. I believe it's talked about right here for the first time. This spaceship is equipped with a vehicle escape system. So the vehicle escape system is essentially this parachute system on paragraph 2. And what is interesting about the vehicle escape system? Well, it is widely used and listed in the this system is widely used and listed in the Rocket Industry Standards Manual. So I would argue that you could say that we might be having to add a social utility or customs of the industry. So we'd have a custom aspect added to the burden side. The burden of acting differently is less than the probability of harm times the liability or severity of harm, which would make the activity itself unreasonable. But if you add customs here, which I would say customs of the space trip, I would say space trip industry. I think rocket industry. We would look here. Oh, there we go. We would look at the manual, the rocket industry manual, and we would find that the aspect about the parachute system was indeed an accepted system, which is what Space Trip was most likely going to argue. Let me put this. There we go. Just space. Oh, let's see. I'll just put. Let's see. Yeah, parachute system. trying to get this all under there. Perfect. Okay. Now, after talking about the customs and industry, we're going to now look at whether or not the risk versus the utility aspect of it, and what we're going to be looking at here is the investigation coupled with the aspect here, considering the new system has been available, it uses rockets to navigate. So the new system, basically what we're looking at in this instance, is the new system versus the parachute system. And we're going to be arguing in our analysis whether or not Space Trip's decision to stick with its tried and true parachute system was reasonable. In that now the argument could be made that it may not have been under this header, because under the header of our risk versus utility, because the investigations after the accident, like we read, indicated that the new rocket system might have led to a better outcome. So we got better outcome versus tried and true. Okay, and we got to ask ourselves here, in light of the burden of acted differently, or I should say the probability of harm times the liability of harm, would that have caused Space Trip to have acted differently, even in light of the customs of the industry through the rocket industry manual and the new system tried and true versus, the parachute system tried and true versus the new system, which may have led to a better outcome. So that's for you to make your determination on that, and make sure to argue your facts. Remember, actual cause, but for test. But for what? But for Space Trip's sticking with its tried and true parachute system, there is the possibility that Paula may have not experienced the critical injury that she thankfully survived from, but that she may not have been in that situation at all. It might have led to a better outcome, like the facts state. So that's technically sufficient for our but for tests through actual cause. And now we're getting to proximate cause, which is what we're going to look at now. Was it foreseeable? Foreseeability. Now, under foreseeability, we're going to ask ourselves here, and this is where we get into the last paragraph here, the fourth paragraph. We're going to be able to really chew on these facts a little bit. Totally unpredictable violent storm. Okay, blowing the escapade off the course. Now, that totally unpredictable, does that make that unforeseeable? Now remember, this might be the fact of the matter is it was a storm. I want to highlight this. So we were dealing with an act of God. So what is it technically then that this storm is? The storm is actually a what? Intervening event. Was it foreseeable that if the escapade was blown off course, they would have to activate the escape system? Well, yeah. Was it foreseeable that the storm would cause the escape capsule to crash to the ground? It's possibly foreseeable, because why? Excuse me. Investigations after the accident again revealed that had they employed that new rocket system, the rocket escape system, they might have led to a better outcome. Okay. Now that would satisfy our foreseeability argument, but we want to make sure also to bring up not only foreseeability. I want to make sure to bring this in just like this, but we're going to be talking about intervening events. And this is where we talk about the acts of God, or our act of God, which would be the storm. Okay? And we ask ourselves here, is this an unforeseen event? Now remember, up here, down here we've already said that the storm itself may have been foreseeable, remember, but it was totally unpredictable. So ask yourself here, was it natural? Was it a natural reaction force? This is the reaction force we're talking about here, is that space trip would activate the escape system. Yes, but was technically the unfortunateness about the escape system not providing a safe landing on the ground? That's where we might have a situation where I don't think that it would supersede, but we should say that this particular intervening event should be considered. That storm would be act of God, and then the other intervening events would be activating the escape system, and coupled with that, the reaction of the reaction of the escape system. Okay, so see, I find that this was all a foreseeable event that would not break the causal chain, but we want to make sure to argue this from both parties' perspective, from Paula's perspective and from Space Trip's perspective. Okay. Then down here under damages, we know we have an actual damage in these facts here, that Paula was critically injured. Now, so we got critical injury. Okay. Okay, and we also want to make sure to bring in our aspects concerning general damages. These are the economic damages, like any particular out-of-pocket expenses. So we got lost wages, lost future earnings. And down here under special damages, this would be, I'm sorry, the general damages, would be pain and suffering, loss of the ability to enjoy life, and the special damages would be your economic damages. So this is non-economic, and this would be your economic damages right here. Pain and this would not include pain and suffering, but this would be out-of-pocket medical expenses, lost wages, lost future earnings, things of that sort. Okay, and so down here we would also ask ourselves here, in addition to negligence, can we argue that this is possibly a strict liability situation? Well, we're dealing with a rocket. You could argue that, but what do you think, viewers? Would you find this as a strict liability, products liability? What do you guys think? In addition to the negligence claim. Well, that's something to think about. I was going to say that we could argue that we're dealing with a strict liability, in that it's an abnormally dangerous activity. And see that in that instance, we're going to be looking at it. Oh, exactly. I would argue that we could argue that whether or not this particular activity of the sending people to on a space trip using a rocket would, number one, is it customary? Number two, can it be made safe even by a reasonable means? And then the third thing we want to make sure is it appropriate for the community? Is it an appropriate activity for its community? Yeah. And then does its risk outweigh its utility? And that's what we're going to be looking at. If that comes out where it indeed its risk outweighs the utility, risk of harm outweighs the utility, then we can proceed further into actual cause. Remember, we taught actual cause, the same analysis borrowed from negligence under the but-for test, and proximate cause. And we'd also borrow our analysis up here under negligence, and we would have our damages situation here. Same set of analysis, but we'd have a different set of defenses here, which I would probably add. Actually, you know what? It would be the exact same. It would be the assumption of the risk and comparative negligence. So we would be down again to these two, coming up again under strict liability. So I think this is where we could possibly put a conclusion as to answering whether or not, or what tort causes may Paula bring. I would say negligence. What about now products liability? That's a very good point. I would probably argue one additional aspect on this one, and that would be implied warranty of merchantability. In this one area, okay? Because right up here, it says, unfortunately, the storm caused the escape capsule to crash to the ground. Remember, though, it deployed as designed. This is how, yeah, exactly. I think it's going to be a real quick discussion. I don't believe that there's going to be a really, cut and dry way of approaching this, but you're just going to have to say, did it operate within its ordinary purpose for which it was made? And it looked like it did, but unfortunately the storm caused the escape capsule to crash to the ground, and that's what caused Paula to be critically injured. And so the argument could be made that it did operate according to its merchantability aspect concerning the escape system, which it did employ as designed. And this is where we could argue that we have a products liability. That's where we could argue that. However, this is where we might have, this might be an implied warranty of merchantability in disguise as well. It's very complicated here as fact that we see the word design here, designed, throughout our fact pattern. Up here it says, okay, right here, let's see, right up here, I believe there was a design. Oh, the aspect too, that it the merchantability of the particular space trip. That's, you know what, I don't want to get too into the actual parachute system discussion, and not pay enough attention to the aspect about the merchantability also applying to the new venture of creating and paying clients on the trip. So we're asking ourselves here, was this trip consistent with the merchantability of for its ordinary purpose? In other words, trip of a lifetime to the moon aboard its spaceship, the Escapade. This is one thing that I have to say that is a really interesting aspect about this question is, I think you could argue products I think you could argue merchantability as well. So I want to put this in here as one area that we could throw in products liability. And we would probably argue in this instance strict liability in torts. And this is where we're probably going to have to err on the side of inclusion, because we want to make sure to bring up the aspect concerning the design. Did it operate as designed? The actual rocket. And that's designed, so we would bring up manufacturing, design, and warning defects. And then we got to ask ourselves here as well, would Space Trip have been within the chain of distribution concerning rockets in terms of was it a merchant of rockets? Well, it looks to me like the parachute system would probably make sense of that. Yeah, I think they could be considered a merchant or a party, a manufacturer possibly of rockets. But maybe I say not a manufacturer per se, but that they are one who one who's in the distributive chain of in the rocket industry. Now, again, this is where this gets really complicated in terms of the product's liability right down here. So I want to make sure to talk about strict liability and torts concerning the manufacturing, especially the design. I want to make sure to pay attention to that, and the warning. And that I also would put in an applied warranty of merchantability concerning the rocket, rocket. Yeah, and I think that would be good. And that's where here I should probably put the elements out here. Let me do that. Probably someone in the distributive chain. Or stream of commerce. We've got to ask ourselves here, did we have a defective product? And then did it leave did it leave the hands of Space Trip in the same condition on the day of the launch? And that's, you could argue that maybe it's possible that it did, but did it malfunction? In other words, was it a defective product? And that's what we got to ask ourselves here under manufacturing design and warning defect. And then again, we're going to having to borrow our actual cause analysis and our approximate cause analysis, damages, and then up here I would probably say we could say some of the defenses down here unique to products would be possibly state of the art, because these up here it said that the system, the escape system, the parachute system, excuse me, that it had a safety. See, it was allow passengers to safely return to the ground should a malfunction occur during the space. It's this malfunction that we're looking at as to whether there was a defect, and on top of that, now for the defense that Space Trip might have, they would probably say that according to the state of the art of the the rocket industry standard, they were proceeding with technology, but that would probably easily defeated because there was also another system available at the time, this new system, which would have made the voyage even more possibly a better outcome because of the investigation after the crash. So even though we're going to be able to argue down here under one of the defenses as state of the art, it would probably be easily defeated because there was a new system was available. that might have changed the outcome, or might have changed result. Okay, perfect. Oh, there we go. Let me just put this in. New system was available that might have changed result, but they decided to stick with the tried and true. Now the contributory negligence. Now I should come up here and finish this out up here. Now that we've talked about all three of the possible areas: negligence, the strict liability argument, actual cause, proximate cause damages. We also want to be bringing up possibly a product's liability for strict liability and torts, and then implied warranty of merchantability concerning the rockets. Make sure to, okay. And then we're going to make a conclusion as to this. Would they be liable for negligence? I would say yes on that. Would they be liable for strict liability? It's possible, very possible. Products liability, possible, because of the design. And then implied warranty of merchantability, also possible argument. So we have four areas, four causes, tort causes of action that Paula may reasonably bring against Space Trip. Now, what are Space Trip's defenses now? The state of the art, we talked about that there was a new system available that might have changed the result. So state of the art, even though arguable, might not prevail. The other one is contributory negligence. Contributory negligence is that aspect that it's a common law bar against recovery if the plaintiff is at fault for any of their injury. Now, how would Paula have been at fault? Well, we're looking here as under the third paragraph that did she know what space exploration was in terms of dangerousness, concerning the actual escape capsule crash in the ground? I don't think so, and that's why I don't think this would be a viable defense for Space Trips, because I don't believe Paula would have had sufficient knowledge. Paula did not have sufficient knowledge concerning the space exploration. Now, the other thing about a last clear chance, could Paula have argued, and I think this is a very powerful argument, that Paula might have argued that had Space Trips stuck with the new system rather than its tried and true system, the outcome, like the investigation said, and we've cited so many times, might have resulted in a better outcome for her. So I think that she could have said to Space Trip, you had the last clear chance to avoid this situation in the first place by employing the new system, but you decided to stick with the tried and true rather than the new system that might have resulted in a better outcome. Now, the comparative negligence would be if it's found that Paula is at fault concerning any of the particular activities, involving the launch and the storm, and then the escape capsule crashed in the ground. If she was at fault, if the jury finds or the court finds that her fault for that, that's what Space Trip would say that Paula's recovery should be reduced by, or it's an apportionment system whereby her recovery would be reduced by her apportioned degree of fault concerning the situation, concerning injury to herself. So this fault apportionment. Now down here, this is where I think the big meaty issue is under assumption and risk, because we're dealing with an expressed assumption, expressed agreement. Now, the aspect concerning expressed agreement, up here, when it says, although Space Trip has taken all reasonable measures to provide a safe voyage, I understand that space trip exploration is dangerous. Back again, does Paula have the ability to appreciate the danger of space exploration? Now, I would say dangers. They say dangers of space exploration. That I would probably say no. Why? Because up here in the first paragraph, we know that it's a new venture. So the aspect is how would a person be able to know and be able to appreciate the risk of signing up for such a trip? I don't see that that would have been available even at that time for Paula. Then the next thing, did she assume? Did the argument could be made then? Did she assume the risk? Well, she did sign the contract, and then assume the risk despite the result. Even if it could be argued that she had assumed the risk despite the result, the appreciation of the dangers of space exploration is what makes this particular defense, I don't think, a viable defense for space trips. So it looks to me like space trip does not really have any particular defense besides like comparative negligence if Paula is at fault for any of the injury that's caused during the space capsule landing or crashing to the ground. The actual escape capsule crashed in the ground. So I'll put a conclusion here as well. Okay, so outside of comparative negligence, I don't think that Space Trip would have any particular viable defenses available to them. Okay, so with that, I think we can call this one a wrap. I thank you so much for staying with me and arguing through all this rather complicated question. I love going through these because you always learn something new in these questions, and your understanding of like torts in this instance becomes deeper and better. And so I thank you so much for tuning in. I want to put a shout out to Chess Cruncher TV. Keep chess crunching, Chess Cruncher. I also want to put a shout out to my Amazon Kindle book, Battling the Big Bad Baby Bar, Essay Basics. Thank you so much for tuning in. Look out for more questions in the near future, and we can help. We're going to be growing together in terms of our knowledge and our application of essay systems and tactics. And so, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you had a great time, and God bless.